It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Brandon's University Bobcats head women's rugby coach, Coach Brian Yon. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks.
Can you talk about how you knew that you want to get started in coaching in college women's rugby?
I think I've always had a passion for coaching. I've been coaching for close to 30 years, and rugby was a sport that I was first introduced to back in my high school playing days, we'll say. And I just fell in love with the game. I was also have a real extensive hockey background. Hockey was always my first priority, but high school rugby was really the only sport that I had an opportunity to play, just because hockey, consumed so much time of the year, but rugby was kind of a spring sport. So it was the only high school sport that I was able to have the opportunity to play. So I really enjoyed the culture of the game. Rugby is very inclusive. And so from there, it kind of fell back into my lap when I first took on a teaching job in Souris, Manitoba. And I was approached by who's now a good friend of mine, Larry Townsend, who basically said, you should think about getting a rugby program started here. Once he'd heard I had a little bit of rugby experience. But so long story short, got involved in the game again way back in 2002, and really, really fell in love with it again. And I've been coaching since. In terms of the, coaching at the university level, I don't know if it was, really about wanting to coach at the university level, like per se. Like, I know people have goals and they want to try and coach at a higher level. The biggest piece for me was we just didn't have a university program in Manitoba, right, in the province of Manitoba. Like a lot of women had to pack up and leave to other provinces like British Columbia and Alberta. And so we felt it was time to try and start a program at Brandon University. So we took that task back in 2017 and decided to get a club program started at BU. And so since 2017, it's been a work in progress. Obviously, we had COVID come in and really throw a wrench in things, but we're back up and running, and it's been a good opportunity for women who don't have to leave the province or leave the Western Manitoban region to be a student athlete. And that was really the main purpose of it, and really enjoyed it. It's been great. We started the program and built it from the ground up, and it's still a work in progress. We're trying to get things right, but we feel we're on track, and that's really the reason why we got involved at the university level.
What was that experience like, taking over your ice hockey experience over to coaching on the rugby side?
Yeah, I think, like being a coach who is involved in two different sports with ice hockey and rugby, I really look at it in terms of coaching is coaching. I think as a coach, if you really want to improve as a coach, obviously attaining experience is the main part of it. And then I think you also have to do your due diligence, and that's, attend PD sessions. And probably more importantly is learn from other coaches. I always say that coaching is a lot like teaching. Obviously, as you can see in the background with all the photos, I'm a high school teacher in Souris, and teachers borrow ideas, and I think coaches do as well. And you can learn from a lot of great coaches out there to really improve and become a better coach. So I think with ice hockey and rugby, there's a lot of similarities. I think how you approach, how invested you are in becoming a better coach, you have to do those things. You have to be very proactive. So obviously the games are different, in terms of, tactics and strategies and things like that. But overall, as a coach, there's a lot of similarities. And, especially when you make the transition from, coaching maybe youth sports to the high performance level, right? And things get a lot, we'll say, a lot more real in that sense. So overall, I think there's a lot of similarities. And I think for me you know, to go from an ice hockey coach to rugby, it really wasn't much of a, we'll say, a challenge at all.
What was that experience like for you getting to coach on the Rugby Canada team?
Yeah, that was a huge moment for me. Getting the opportunity to coach with some other great coaches. As a part of the Rugby Canada U17 program for a number of years. Some really really good mentor coaches there. I was lucky enough to do a tour over to England. Under Dave Chambers' coaching staff there and obviously continued with the U17 development program. Jonathan Long, who's based out of Calgary, has done a tremendous amount of work, as a mentor coach. So he's done a lot for me. And then getting the opportunity to work with the U20 Canadian women when we went down to San Diego, and so coaching at the underage, we'll say national level was a real good coaching experience, a great way to attain more coaching experience and to learn from some of the best people in the rugby community.
What was that experience like getting to travel internationally and coaching internationally?
Yeah, like that's what I always tell people about rugby. What's great about rugby is it takes you all over the world, and you really network and you get to know a lot of people, in from other countries. And I have a lot of friends who are, from England and Australia and New Zealand and South Africa, and it's really rewarding that way. Getting to know people from different parts of the world who are involved in the game and seeing what they do and how they run their programs. And I've learned a tremendous amount, by going overseas. And I think one of the most important parts of it is just the networking side of it, right? And getting to know people, and that was extremely rewarding in that aspect.
Coming to Brandon University, what was it like building that rugby program?
Yeah, it's been an experience. I think one of the things when you build a program is you want to try and get the culture right. And I think when we started the BU program, we as a coaching staff felt that accountability has to be there. Like whether it's a club program or a varsity program, you have to get the culture right, and you have to have buy-in from the athletes. And so it took us a little while to get that, we'll say, online. And we had a number of athletes, I think, that maybe came in and had other expectations, and so we just felt that it's like, this isn't going to work. You need to buy into what we're trying to do with the program. And we along the way had to ask some players to leave, but we felt it was necessary in order to get that right. And so we feel we're on track now, and so it's been a work in progress. And then of course, just trying to provide a good experience for students, post secondary, to be able to play a sport and go to school at the same time. So that those are the pieces that we're trying to get right. And we feel we took a real big step this year, and we're just going to continue to build off that.
What does a typical rugby match look like for you as a head coach versus for your athletes?
Well, I think in terms of a typical rugby match, there's obviously the build up to game day. So you have your training sessions, and you've got to implement what you want to do in attack and defense, and there's a lot of moving parts that go with it. I think the biggest thing is relying on your coaching staff as well. It's kind of a divide and conquer mentality. There's so much to cover, and and building up to game day. In terms of game day, what I really love about the game of rugby is you as coaches build for that, but then when you get to the actual game day, it's the players who run it on the field. And you get them before the game briefly, you get them at halftime briefly, and then you have your post game debrief. So it really puts a lot of, we'll say, control and power in the players' hands, and that's what I really like about rugby. It's the coaches aren't hands-on throughout, an 80-minute game. And so the players are out there and they're put in situations where they have to ultimately make the decisions on the field. So sometimes it goes really well, and then other times it doesn't go too well. But yeah, I think typical game day, it's the prep leading up to it, and then the players get on with it and and show what they can do on the field.
Who are some of the teams that you typically play?
Yeah, so it was really exciting for us this year. We formed a new rugby conference. So it's called the Prairie University Women's Rugby Conference, and it was kind of a brainchild of a few of us who were currently running club programs within universities. So we formed the league this year. So there was Brandon University, University of Regina, University of Saskatchewan, Mount Royal University, and SAIT, which is based out of Calgary. So it was a 5-team league this year. So we ran our conference play, and then we ran a championship weekend in Saskatoon, and it was great. It was something the players had, we had in place for them to play for, play for a championship and that sort of thing. And I know some of the people involved, especially with their respective teams, and we're fortunate to have some really good people like Alex Paulson step up, and she's done a wonderful job in helping run the conference and that sort of thing. So it was a big success this year, and we're looking to build off that for next year.
What was that experience like, having Saskatchewan play at home versus going away and playing away?
Yeah, like it's it's kind of unique when you get to visit different places and play, right? And like for us, for example, we it's really nice playing at home, playing in Brandon. We have a nice facility here, 2 full-size pitches outdoor. But to be able to go to travel to Saskatoon and play in a championship weekend, they did a nice job of hosting. They've got 2 full-size pitches there as well. And it's always neat to be able to go on the road and play in a championship weekend, and I think that helps teams grow a little bit. You're on the road and you're having to deal with some of the logistical issues of being on the road, but I think it does help bring teams closer together. And I think certainly the championship weekend in Saskatchewan there was huge for us, and then I think we really saw the girls come together, and ultimately we finished winning the bronze medal, which was a nice step for our young team. And and the nice thing is, coming away from that, the girls now they're motivated to to try and, we'll say, set the bar a little bit higher for next year.
Of course, what have been some of the things that you've been able to accomplish so far?
I don't know if in terms of like accomplishments, like I don't know, certainly from a personal standpoint, I'm just really proud of our group of women who have the courage to step out onto the rugby field and basically go to war for 80 minutes. It's a physical game. There's a lot of women out there that wouldn't think about stepping on the field and getting into a contact sport. There's not many contact sports out there for women. And what I really love and appreciate about rugby is there's no law variations between the men's game and the women's game. It's the same. And I think from a personal standpoint, I'm really happy and pleased with the fact that we can provide an opportunity for women to go out and play on the rugby field and succeed. In terms of accomplishments, just getting a program up and running is huge, and I think what it does now offers another opportunity for, players that maybe necessarily, don't want to leave province to go to school, or maybe aren't quite there yet or qualified to maybe play at a varsity level. The Canada West is a very competitive competition, and maybe there's some players there that still want to be student athletes, but maybe just aren't quite there at that level. And so, obviously the club programs that are offered in the PUWRC are, another little option for them. So, I would say the accomplishments, having the program up and running, but I just looking ahead, I think we have so much more to do, and that's really exciting.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to play collegiate rugby?
Sorry, what was that?
What does that process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to play collegiate rugby?
Well, I think in terms of the process, first off, as a potential student athlete, you have to make the decision on what you want to do. I always tell, women that are, coming out of, say, high school, have some rugby experience, or maybe don't have rugby experience. First and foremost, your education is the most important part. You're going to school to attain a degree or whatever. It's basically you're setting yourself up for your future. So I always tell them that that's first and foremost. That's the most important part. You have to make a decision where you want to go to school. And then the second piece of it is the rugby side of it. And being a former student athlete myself, it's one of the most rewarding experiences I've ever had in my life. Those are some of the best years of my life, playing, collegiate hockey in North Dakota, and built some great friendships out of that. Just the experience itself, and I think, it's a little bit of a, we'll say, an outlet, to get away from the education side of things a little bit is, playing sport and being competitive and playing in a competitive environment. Those things are really rewarding. So I always tell players, go somewhere where you're going to get your education, right? What you want to do. And then the second part of it we'll say the rugby side specific is go somewhere where you're going to play. I think some athletes, they get into programs and they see that certain programs are very, very successful and they're winning championships, and that's great. But those ultimately are very, very competitive environments to crack. And I mean, if you're going to be a player that's going to be on the sidelines, not playing a whole lot, I'd probably be looking for other options to go where you're going to play. So those are I'd say the two most important pieces in terms of the process. From our perspective, in terms of the recruiting, anybody who's, at the head of a program at the collegiate level knows that recruiting is like 90% of the battle. So, but, like for us being a club team in at a smaller university, we're realistic, but we're finding that there's a lot of girls that want to come here and play. And so yeah, we get out and we watch games and we approach people, and but we find that we have a lot of people who approach us and are keen and interested and want to be involved in our program. So and then I would say the last part of the process is, players I find are some of the best recruits. So like I think if you talk to any any head coach of a collegiate program, that sometimes players become a part of your program due to the fact that they have connections to players that are already in your program. So I always say that some of the your current players are some of the best recruiting tools that you have. So that's pretty well I would say the process of it. And then of course once they're involved in the program, then there's all the expectations, the commitment, that sort of thing. And then like I said, the accountability piece as well.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that uniform for the first time and versus the seniors putting it on for the last time?
Yeah, there's always a lot of emotions that go with that. Obviously it's exciting whenever we have a new player that, that puts on the Bobcat uniform, and, it's a very, I'll say it's a very welcoming, we'll say emotion, a happy moment, we'll say, especially when you see the players when they put the uniform on, the smiles that they have, and of course there's a lot of nerves that go with that too. We have new players that come in every year and they're in their first game. It's a little bit shock and awe, but it's exciting for us coaches to see that. But then it goes the other way too when you have players who graduate, your seniors who are moving on, and especially the ones that have put so much time and effort into the program. It's a broad range of emotions. You're happy that they're moving on and they're going to succeed in life. And but the other part is, we'll say the selfish part of it is you don't want to let them go. You want them to stay, but unfortunately that's not how it works. So, it's a wide range of emotions when we see that, when we see good people move on to do better things in life. And but I think a little bit of satisfaction at the end of it, knowing that they're going to go off, they're going to do good things, and maybe we had a small part to play in that.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing them go on and play for the national team representing Canada?
Yeah, I think it's great anytime that you see a player develop and then move on to the next level. I've been very fortunate to have been able to coach some great players throughout my coaching experience. We've had numerous players who have gone on to play and represent Canada. We've had players go on to play professionally. There's just a few names that come to mind right off the hop. Amanda Thornborough, who I had the privilege of coaching for the Manitoba U19 women's team. She went on and to represent Canada at multiple World Cups. We currently have Emily Tutosi, who's playing with the women's national team, and she's been a part of or the last World Cup. She played a real significant role there in helping Canada have a real successful run there, and she's playing professionally at Exeter in England. And so it's just great to see all these players go on to play at the next level, and knowing that they've developed along the way, in Manitoba and through youth rugby, high school rugby, and at the collegiate level as well. And it's nice to see that there were numerous people who had a hand in that, from youth coaches right through to high school coaches to the collegiate level.
What are some of your future plans for the program moving forward?
I think for the future, it's right now, it's just keep plugging away. So now we got to start prepping for, we have a couple rugby sevens tournaments coming up, but it's really looking, I think, to next fall. We've got a group of new recruits coming in, and we're still recruiting right now. And so it's really about prepping for next September to get ready for the next PUWRC campaign, and just keep building off that. And I think, we have a lot of work to do still. There's a number of things that I think we need to change, and some new approaches on some things that, we're always looking to try and grow as a program. And everything we've done hasn't been perfect, but I think there isn't a day that goes by where you don't learn something about yourself as a coach, or as the program evolves. So yeah, so it's just about prepping for next season, and trying to get some pieces into place, and hopefully it all comes together.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college women's rugby?
My advice to new players coming in is, you've got to be 100% committed. You've got to have a high work ethic, and that's not just on the rugby field, that's also in the classroom. And then the third piece is accountability. Like, if you put those three pieces together, you'll do fine. Obviously there's going to be a lot of, I think, also life skills that come with it. So you got to have, good personal management skills. You got to be able to manage your schedule, your time between being a student and an athlete. And, I think if you come in, like I say, with a high work ethic, a good attitude, and that accountability piece, holding yourself accountable, but also holding your teammates accountable as well, and everybody gets on the same page, I think you'll have all kinds of success.
What advice would you give those people that have aspirations of making it to the national team level?
Well, I think if an athlete has the aspirations of playing at the national level, I think as a coach you've got to be honest with them, right? You got to first be honest in telling them what it's going to take, and that's going to be a lot of extra hard work. I think any player who comes in and says they want to play at the national level, that's great. I've coached a long time, and I've heard lots of people say they want it, but are they willing to put in the work and effort to get it? So, I would say, just in terms of that, it's like, let's be realistic. Like, are you willing to make the commitment and the sacrifices that are needed to get there? And, we always think that a lot of this stuff, professional athletes and athletes playing at the national level and that sort of thing, it's all glory and everything. And it isn't, it's a lot of a lot of sacrifices, hard work, and effort that goes into it. And, I really do think that that's the reason why there's a select few that do make it. I think you have to be, I would say, really wired in a special way that, you're able to go and do all those things and, make those types of sacrifices. Your buddies are going off to a party. Are you choosing to go there? Are you choosing to get to the gym? Are you eating clean? Are you putting in extra hours when the team's not? That sort of thing. So I just take the approach of like, you got to have that serious conversation. And, and then the last part of it is you never know unless you have a go. So if you're willing to do all those things and you put the effort in and you have a go, and if it works out, perfect. And if not, at least you could say, hey, you know what, I gave it a go. It's not for me. And then I think, as long as the effort was put there, then, I think everybody can walk away, I think, with some kind of a positive outtake on it.
What advice would you give those head coaches looking to build their own program and build their own legacy?
I would just say, obviously you got to be passionate about it. You have to have, obviously you got to put the time into it as well. It's not easy. And again, anybody who coaches knows that, there's a lot of sacrifices made as well. I just think I've always lived by the creed, if you're going to do it right. And what I mean by that is you've got to put 100% into it. Effort, time, all of that. And I think also it's really about building a coaching staff, surrounding yourself with good people. I think people that are on the same wavelength, people that are willing to put in the utmost effort as well. I think if you can get those pieces right, then you're well on your way to to helping start a program. But one other thing that maybe some coaches might not have any control over is you have to have the support from your athletics department, your administrative side of things, and that's where we've been really lucky. We've got good support from our athletics department at Brandon University, and they've done a wonderful job in making us feel very welcome there. And so those are some key elements to starting a program for sure.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you on social media along with the program at?
So you can find Brandon University. So we have a Facebook page. So if you look up Brandon University Women's Rugby, we've got a Facebook page. We have Instagram. We're on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now. So there's plenty of social media outlets there, and of course, then you can find us also at the Brandon University Bobcats website. So typically, most search engines, you type in Brandon University Bobcats rugby, you should find us fairly quick.
That's great. Thank you again for your interview, and best of luck in your future as the head women's rugby coach at Brandon University.
Thanks, much appreciated.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Brian, for your interview, and best of luck in the future.
Cheers.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.